meeting is called to order. Jane, you want to do the roll call?
I will, and I just want to remind everybody, if you could announce your name and where you are attending from as far as city and county. Pam Weil.
Present from East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Chuck Overby.
Present, Ingham County, East Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan.
Alex Smith.
Present from East Lansing and Ingham County.
Adam DeLay. No. Nichole Biber.
I think you're muted, Adam.
Adam is muted, I believe.
There we go.
Oh, there he is.
Attending live, East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
All right. Nichole Biber.
Bonjour, I'm here in East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Sarah Hoover.
Present, East Lansing, Michigan, from Clinton County.
And Sarah Reckhow.
Present from East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
You're muted, Pam.
So is that it for the roll call?
Yes.
All right, I call for the approval of the agenda. Do I hear support? Do I hear a movement?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion or amendments to the agenda?
I actually, at some point, wanted to, and this was something that we didn't get to talk about in the last meeting, but talk about, or we touched on the last meeting, but I hadn't had any follow-up on, but was at some point talking about doing a letter from the commission in support of the historical marker for Dr. Green. I know so I don't know if we need to add that to the agenda or if that can wait to commissioner comments. I know the HRC just passed something very broad that just said, we authorize so-and-so to draft and sign a letter and just do it that way. So that's something that I know we talked about last month and I didn't follow up on, so that's on me, but just wanted to see if that's something we could figure out somewhere to fit in tonight.
Yeah, I would suggest, because there has been some discussion around that thanks to Nichole. I want us all to be doing actions as much as possible too. So I would suggest that the ideas come in commissioner communications, and then like if there's a letter being sent, a resolution, some official act, then that get moved to a item on the agenda. And then those, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong city-wise, that you can contact the chair to request something be added to the agenda. Or at the time of the start of the meeting, you can request to have an agenda item added, and then that gets seconded, and then the change to the agenda gets approved. Does that sound viable for everybody?
Yes.
Can I make an addition?
Yes, Tim, please.
Additional, thank you. If I could suggest, as I think this is consistent with what Commissioner Chair Pam Weil suggested, is that for tonight we put it on as a commissioner comments or commissioner update, unless you need to have the letter today.
No. We're hoping to submit the application by the end of this month, if not early next month. So whatever we can do to make that timeline workable is kind of the hope.
Okay,
well,
so good.
You really need the letter in front of the commission to vote on it. So that's kind of why it needs to be an agenda item, that it's got an attachment that we can all see and review.
We can always send it as a supplement down the road to the initial application. So if we needed to move it to next month, again, that's on me. I know we talked about it last month and I didn't get it in the pipe, so to speak. So I can just touch on it in commission communications, and then we can aim to have something to go on that next month.
Well, I would say if you've got a high level wording that you could give us tonight, we're not committing to the details of the construction or any of that sort of thing.
I think it would just be the East Lansing Parks and Recreation Commission Advisory Commission is supportive of efforts to honor Dr. Robert L. Greene through the erection of a historical marker on parkland across from 207 Bessemer Drive.
Okay, everybody's heard that. Does somebody want to second Adam's request that item be added to the agenda?
I'll second it.
Okay. That item will now be added to the agenda. Did we have Nichole? Did you want to discuss your item?
I think I'm going to, as part of a commissioner
Comment section?
comment.
Great.
Yeah.
Great, and then maybe we'll see that next month as an
Yeah.
official sort of, that'll move forward. And same with maybe additional details for Adam's project as that becomes more concrete and that sort of thing. Great, good, yeah. All right, so business item 4.5 will now be Adam's verbiage. And that we'll still discuss it, still vote whether or not we want to move that forward. It is just now officially an item on the agenda.
Appreciate you letting me shoehorn that in, and
Yeah,
sorry
no,
again that I didn't get with you guys earlier beforehand.
So I'm one of the few people that loves bureaucracy, and it can work, all darn it. And also
There you
be
go.
orderly. It can be orderly, and Chuck, did you have something?
I'm all set.
Okay. All right. So all those in favor of approving the agenda with the modification of the additional 4.5 item as discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the modified agenda is approved. All right, now we move down to the approval of the minutes for the previous meeting in February. Someone want to move that?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, I've got a little bit of discussion, and we're gonna need, once again, clarification from the city may move forward. The email issue of email discussion. What I have done historically is informational things can be sent and then they get included in the minutes. So under staff communication, if a member of the commission has sent an email to the group, then that gets included in the minutes because it's part of the public record. So that's, I just want to point that out. If I send something out, I'll say, please include in the minutes of the meeting, whatever. So just want to put that out there. All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes, sans the comments before, but say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are moved. All right. Tim, you're gonna introduce the new members?
Yes, I apologize. I don't have the agenda in front of me. I think Nichole's probably the first one.
Nope, Sarah Hoover.
Sarah Hoover. Sarah, welcome. I don't know if you'd like to provide a little bit of background to the commission about yourself and your interest in being on the commission.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. Again, Sarah Hoover. I've lived in East Lansing about 15 years this summer. I've got a son who's 9, and we're heavy users, especially of youth sports. And we're just wrapping up the city basketball program. And we live out in Hawk Nest, so we love the trail system and utilize that pretty frequently as well. I work in the insurance industry. What else? I went to U of M, so it's a challenge sometimes to live here, but that's okay. I'm wearing green today, but it's olive green. And I'm just happy to be here and happy to finally get involved after living here for so many years, and just felt like the right time. So thank you for allowing me to join.
And now we've got Nichole.
Yeah.
All right, my daughter just hid. No, an 11-year-old about to brush her hair. No, a 7-year-old son, and actually a 20-year-old daughter, but
And
she lives.
Nichole.
Yes, I said my daughter Nichole just turned 20, so she's living in New Orleans, but she comes here, and we're in the Pinecrest neighborhood, so we like to go to the Henry Fine Park, and the little woods there are very nice for us, and for everyone, of course. I've been a long time enthusiast about sort of in suburban and urban areas how we can increase the habitat for pollinators, particularly. That's something that's I think about quite often, kind of a panacea in my mind. But I went to MSU. So I came here in 2007 and got my PhD in English. But I'm a very quiet student. I don't like advertise it even anyway. So but even with that, my focus has always been the relationship to the land. I think it has a lot to do certainly with my indigenous heritage. I'm a little Traverse Bay Odawa, so Harbor Springs, Petoskey area. But yeah, I'm excited because I feel like it's this is a really great time. There's more awareness of the climate crisis, and I think that restoring the biosphere is something that's in our hands. It's a really local thing that can be a positive. We can see the change really quickly, and there's so many nice holdings in East Lansing, and I like the thought of increasing those habitats and sort of being a model for other cities, and for to kind of change people's view of what's beautiful, maybe in their own yards too. So big watch.
You're muted, Pam.
That just leaves Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Reckhow. I've lived in East Lansing since 2007. I am in the political science department at MSU, and my teaching and my research is focused on city politics, local government, as well as educational policy. And I have 2 children, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. And we are very involved in all manner of recreational activities in East Lansing, the basketball, soccer, swim lessons at Hannah, B&A program, all of us express. I probably haven't covered everybody. We've covered the gamut. My kids love it, and we love the trails as well. And I'm really excited to serve on this committee and get to know you all.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great. I love users, and you'll come in with your user angles from the parks and the rec program, and super value it. So I know how much my son, friend of Nichole's, so he's 20 now, but boy, it was so valuable when in elementary, middle school, all the way through high school, and then he still does all this express. So it's been great. It's great. They're great asset. All right. Do we have any public comment, Justin?
We have nobody in the queue for public comment.
All right. I'm going to hand the budget actions. Oh, wait. Michigan Recreation and Parks Association Initiative Recreation Program Award Presentation, East Lansing. Anyway, do you want to talk about that? Is that you, Tim?
Thank you, Pam. I appreciate that. We've invited Kathleen Miller this evening to attend the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. Our Children's Theater program, All of Us Express Children's Theater, received the Michigan Recreation and Park Association, mParks is what they're going as right now, Innovative Recreation Program Award for the work that the Children's Theater, Kathleen, along with the staff and the board from the 501c3 board from the Children's Theater did to, I use the word pivot from in-person theater productions, drama camps, workshops and what have you, to everything being in a virtual online sort of format. So we've asked Kathleen to come in and talk about that. But before I do that, the presentation was made at the city council meeting from the chair of the mParks Award Recognition Committee last week or the week before, I don't remember exactly. And we used the opportunity to provide city council an update about the children's theater program. So we've asked Kathleen to go ahead and do that today. So Kathleen, go ahead.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. And thanks for letting me present tonight. I'm pretty excited about this. Also very excited that in addition to Pam, we also have a couple of parents here tonight who have had kids involved in All of Us Express. And so hopefully it was really positive. And if not, then we need to talk. So let me just go ahead and get started by sharing my screen. And this is where I always get stuck. Oh, never mind. I remember. Sorry, I switched here earlier. All right. So All of Us Express Children's Theater actually has been around since 1989. We're actually in our 32nd season right now. However, it's only been part of the city's program since 2009. So we have evolved a lot since then, and I really continued just to move forward. So as Tim had indicated, and as you all know, since actually yesterday was our 1-year anniversary of being closed from COVID. So we were in a really difficult situation. But walking back to where we were before COVID, in our 30th season, we continue to see increased participation in our programs as well as in our box office. The 30th season was the biggest season we'd ever had. We actually did a collaboration with Riverwalk that year. Wizard of Oz, that was a huge show for us. And then Mary Poppins, our summer musical, was also a very large show with a lot of participation. So we just came off a really wonderful year, and also really great things are usually said about our programs. Here's some examples of some things that, in addition to the participants having fun, they also build on their skills and knowledge of the program. So this time last year, we had just cast Fantastic Mr. Fox, and we just started rehearsals when we got the call that we had to close down due to COVID. So we were at that time very optimistic that everybody's going to behave themselves. In 2 weeks, we'd be right back at it. Unfortunately, as you all know, that didn't happen. In April, we were in a situation where we had to lay off our artistic director and our theater aide. And in May, we realized that the situation was not improving in Michigan, or actually nationally. And so we weren't going to be able to do our summer musical, which we already had the rights for, which was Frozen Junior. And it would have been a most appropriate show for last summer, but unfortunately we were unable to do it. In May, we had to refund over $20,000 actually on drama camp pre-registrations that we had taken. Our drama camps have really grown over the years in huge popularity, not just because, you know, Blake works for us, who is an amazing drama camp instructor, but also because I think that parents are just looking sometimes to add a little theater, a little drama to their kids' summers. And so they're wildly popular. Often we have wait lists, but we did have to cancel them and refund everybody who had pre-registered. We also had planned to do The Little Prince, and that was also postponed because we were unable to perform it in May. And then lastly, we had gotten so much correspondence from parents just saying, please give us something. We just need something. Our kids are like missing theater in our lives. So we were in May, the Board of Trustees is really, we have a fantastic board right now, and they applied for some emergency funding through the Michigan Council of Arts and Cultural Affairs, and they were awarded $5,000 for that. And previously we were awarded $8,000 from the R.E. Olds Foundation for our spring and summer production. So we sat down with them and asked them, is it okay if we use part of that funding for our summer programming, since we know that obviously we weren't able to do a spring or summer performance. We'd like to be able to keep that money and reallocate it, and they allowed us to do so. So $3,000 of that $8,000 grant went towards bringing our staff back. So in June 2020, we were able to bring back our artistic director, and she immediately got familiar with Zoom and other opportunities that were virtual. And we made a decision that we have to return to some type of virtual theater. So we planned 10 different online or virtual summer drama camps that started at the beginning of July. And they were incredibly popular. We did not expect actually that kind of popularity, but we ended up with 81 total participants for those 10 different drama camps. And so we felt that was pretty encouraging. So we decided, instead of canceling our fall production, let's try to do it virtually. So that's what we did. In the meantime, before we were able to audition for our fall program though, we were managed to perform The Little Prince out in front of Hannah. So as you can see, these are our participants. They started working on The Little Prince in January. So they were already 2.5 months into rehearsals when we had to close down. They were able to pick back up doing rehearsals in late May by taking them to the park and socially distancing them, and then also doing some virtual stuff as well. So for blocking purposes, if you are not familiar with that theater term, it kind of helps determine where your space is on a stage. They had to rehearse in a park because they had needed a physical space in order to perform that. We rented a tent. As I indicated, we put it out here in front of Hannah, and we invited just close friends and parents, caregivers, to the performance. And it was really, really a just wonderful opportunity for them to be able to complete that show that they'd worked on since January. So at the end of August, we actually did virtual auditions for our virtual double bill, which was Snow White and The Princess and the Pea. These are just some of the screen grabs that I took from that performance. We ended up with, I believe, about 40 total participants. So for those of you that are not familiar with All of Us Express, All of Us Express is unlike other children's theater programs, we are for children and by children. So what that means is that children participate on stage, but also on crews. So they're the ones that are learning to do makeup, they're assistant directing, they're doing the costumes, they're doing the sets. So the sets that you see in the background behind those kids, and I guess it would technically be behind their computers, are sets that they designed themselves. So that it was like a homework project for them. Not necessarily those actors, because that would have been the sets crew that did that. And then we did an exchange where we passed them off to those actors. The same with the costumes. Those costumes are all designed in collaboration with our costume crew head. And then tech, in this case, we had someone else, one of our other volunteers, help us with that. And so for our very first production, I was super pleased, and I think everyone was too. Gave us enough courage to do our winter production, Prince and the Pauper, as a virtual opportunity too. So if you will indulge me for just 2 minutes, I want to show you some clips from that. Now, can you guys see this on your screen? Okay. Last time I did it didn't work, so I'm excited. It worked this time.
Can't hear it.
Can't hear it, Kathleen.
Okay, I don't know why you guys can't hear it.
Is your volume set?
My volume's turned all the way up, as high as it'll go.
Kathleen, can you please stop sharing. And when you reshare it again, there should be a checkbox on the bottom of the share window to include the audio.
Okay. Stop sharing. So right now, Justin, there's a checkbox, or as soon as I hit share.
Once you hit share screen.
Okay. Thank you. There is a checkbox. Thank you. It's much better with sound.
The signal. The garage has arrived. Proceed, sire.
How can I do this? You must. The crown awaits you.
I forbid him the crown. I am the king.
Loose him and forbear. He is the king.
His Majesty's sickness is upon him again. Seize the vagabonds.
Touch him not. He is the king. Oh, your majesty, let poor Tom Candy be first to swear allegiance.
Then this impostor was not of your own doing?
No one will believe me.
I think you speak true.
What a strange resemblance.
You, Jane, should know me, and you, Lord Hartford, my uncle.
It's as he says. On our way back from the jail, we were chasing.
Okay. I'll stop sharing that. And go back to my presentation. So hopefully that gave you a kind of a general idea of what a virtual production looks like for All of Us Express. So one of the things that I was really pleased with is that we were able to make kids come in and go out. We were able to, our props crew was able to make, in some cases, 2 of everything, because if you're passing something from one screen to another, obviously that same thing has to look exactly the same in somebody else's house as they're receiving it. So as you can tell, some of our backdrops vary a little bit, but it still adds kind of, I think, to overall cuteness for children's theaters. So next slide. We are currently in our Charlotte's Web production for the spring. We're hoping this is our last virtual show. And we are probably about 3 weeks in right now. We are actually doing our cruise on site here with small numbers of kids. We're social distancing, where the kids are wearing their masks. They're really just very incredible. But they are thrilled to actually be with their friends here at Hannah. The cast, however, is still rehearsing virtually. In addition to our spring production, we started back in January what is we consider like a podcast drama and playwriting experience. This was an opportunity for young people to come together and to write their own script for War of the Worlds. And we're able to do this because War of the Worlds, I was shocked, but it is public domain now. It's that old. So the kids are still in the process of putting together, they're writing their own script, and they will perform it later in May virtually. We were hoping there might be a possibility to do something live, but we don't think that'll be able to happen. It's perfect though for virtual because we are planning it as a podcast drama. And just like those of you, I'm sure no one here actually was alive at the time the War of the Worlds was played over the radio, but that's really the intention of this, is that it's going to be mostly sound anyway, so people can get really a good feel for this scary thing happening in the country. So that's a really fun thing that we're doing right now. None of this, of course, would be possible without my amazing production team. So Kathleen is not that creative, unfortunately, but fortunately I have very creative staff. So Liz Cook, our artistic director, really took the lead on planning this. Some of our other production team members you can see are around there, and I'm sure that I've missed other people. I know actually Blake was part of the Little Prince, so I apologize I didn't put him on this list. He was, I believe, our co-director or stage manager for that. So when these great minds get together, they think of all kinds of wonderful things. And that's how we really stay fresh, how we stay current, and how we'll continue to progress for the children's theater. It's also possible because, as I mentioned earlier, we have a really wonderful board of directors. In this group of people have been phenomenal, helping us to secure grants, helping us to do fundraisers. Actually, they do the fundraisers. And as I mentioned to the city council, we have one East Lansing resident who is on our board. He's our treasurer. He's actually collected, I think he's over $5,000 in cans from the East Lansing area now. And so he just drives around and takes cans from people and turns them into cash for our program. So he's really amazing and does some fantastic work. But everybody really has been wonderful about pitching in. And ironically, in this crazy COVID year, they've raised more money through fundraising than any other year we've raised in the past few years. So, and it's been really amazing. And it's been wonderful to see how supportive everyone has been. And that's it. I'm going to stop sharing my presentation now. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if not, then I will bid you farewell.
Don't go yet, Kathleen.
Kathleen, Kathleen,
Question?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you. This is a boatload of work and it looks like fun and it looks like it's been very successful, and thank you for your work, and we're very lucky to have your help and support, Kathleen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And your support means a ton, because obviously getting the word out to new groups is really important, and just knowing that you guys are there you have our backs. That's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I can testify that this program is really fantastic for kids. It is for Blake, my son Blake. It made him understand the importance of being on time, taking it seriously, responsibility, taking serious responsibility. And also my favorite thing, I think, is respect across the roles and work in every aspect. It's very balanced. All of the kids do crew, all of the kids do tech, all of the kids perform. And so you don't have that unhealthy hierarchy. Everyone appreciates the importance of everybody on the team. It's really fantastic. It's yeah, yay. And I highly recommend it for your kids. If they like it at all. And it's yay. And nice job, Kathleen. Very
No, I thank you for saying that, because if I didn't get that point across, that is really very fundamental to all of us Express Children, is we don't have prima donnas here. And that's not the intention. The intention is that if you are cast one show, you have to be crew the next show, because you need to understand all the work that goes in behind the scenes. That's so important to a well-rounded theater program. And so
it teaches respect. It teaches respect across roles. And like I said, responsibility. Like, be like, we can't be late. Like, he's never said that about anything ever, right? Like,
yeah.
it was so healthy, and he felt so good about it. And yeah, so yay. Yeah, and it's great that they've been recognized. Did you get a plaque or something?
We do have a plaque. So next time you guys are in the Hannah Community Center, hopefully sometime very soon, if you just look in the display case right behind the front desk, there's a beautiful plaque.
Nice.
Very nice.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Recreation Passport Grant update.
Okay. Just wanted to do a quick report. Last month, we talked about the potential for submitting a Recreation Passport Grant on April 1st for a bank shot basketball court program. We showed you the little video of the bank shot court program. I'm reporting that as we've continued to look at research, and I think the commissioners had several good questions with respect to that program, or that particular type of, what do I want to call it, that court itself. And what we found out is we need to do more research before we comfortable making a recommendation about whether to move forward with that project or not. So we were not comfortable to come back tonight and say, let's submit a grant through the statewide Recreation Passport Program. And before we're ready to do that. We want to do more. We want to do more work, and the or is probably more the direction that we would look at is when we look at our basketball court improvements at Patriarch Park, is perhaps we can do our own sort of version of something like that, which might not necessarily be the same thing, but we would do our own sort of version of it and incorporate shorter goals like 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot goals versus 10-foot goals to be more family oriented. So if nothing else, it provided us the opportunity to look further into some things to continue to look at making our programs, our projects, what have you, our initiatives more inclusive. So we'll continue to work on that, but we're not prepared to submit a Rec Passport program at this time.
Yeah, for our new board members, that was a net and backboard configuration that was varied, that you could reach from a wheelchair, that was not a competitive sort of game, that was a recreational tool for all, right? And one of the things that I would like us to consider is maintenance of things. So if we bring something in, what does the 10-year maintenance look like for it? And what's, so that's for anything. But yes, I love the concept. Okay, Parks and Rec Fund operating budget. Oh, unless somebody else has any comments about the grant.
Just a quick question. What is the deadline on submission for a grant if we decide to do something else this year?
April 1st.
Okay, so it sounds like we're going to pass this year then?
We're going to pass this year.
Okay.
Well, and is that matching funds? Does that grant require matching funds?
Yes, it does.
So that's another reason why.
Sure. We've got a full load or a full menu. So that's another contributing factor too.
Sure.
Let me see.
Okay. You bringing up your slides, Tim?
It worked, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Look at me. Okay. Moving from the fun side of our organization, which Kathleen just had the opportunity to share a number of fun things that we do. Now we're looking at the sort of less fun side of it, if you will, depending on how you look at things. But this is a draft version of our fiscal year 2022 budget request. We are currently in the finance review, meaning the finance department review portion of the budget. We still have the city manager review portion to go through, but we're planning to, we wanted to provide an update. That's the schedule that we talked about, is a multi-month schedule as we look at the budget. So we're providing an update on what we're looking at for a fiscal year 2022 budget request. And we'll come back with a more complete version at the April meeting, as well as talking about our fiscal year 2022 capital projects budget next month. But trying to tell a little bit of a story here, we looked back and we said, let's look at fiscal year 2019, because that was our last full year of operation before we went into COVID, okay? Before we went into the pandemic. And if you look at that, you see, of course, that we had a budget, our actual expenses or actual revenues of $4,440,000. Can you see my little pointer up there? Right. $4,440,000 of actual revenues and $4,406,000 of actual expenses, with $33,000 sort of operating surplus. And that, of course, included under this line called other financing sources. That's $2,032,000. That's a general fund transfer that we typically get in order to go ahead and operate our program. So that's a general fund transfer. So that's a healthy amount we get, but we still generate probably $2.4 million each year out of user fees and what have you. So we start there, and we show what a typical budget year looks like. Then we look at fiscal year 2020 actual, okay? And you see our total revenues were $3,766,000, which is a substantial revenue decrease, almost like $675,000 revenue decrease as a result of our essentially closed operations from 50% of March, all of April, May, and June in fiscal year 20. And on the expenditure side, a significant reduction in expenses also. However, the biggest point is our expenditures still outpaced our revenues. So we started looking at, as compared to budget, a sort of operating budget deficit is what we would typically call it. So because staff did quite a few things, we ended up with just a $48,000 operating budget deficit at the end of fiscal year 2020. Okay, there was a number of things that ended up occurring that helped us out. For example, Kathleen just mentioned the grant that the Children's Theater Board went and got. Julianne Jennings went out and applied for Child Care Relief Act funds for our before and after school program, and that generated, I think, about $80,000 for us to help reduce our deficit that we had for fiscal year 20. Then you see our amended budget, or our adopted, amended is adopted in this case, and what we were starting out the year at, and you see that that really is nowhere near what we're going to end up having is for our year-end estimate. You see that our operating revenues are going to be down about $1.8 million from budget, from our adopted budget to 2021 to our year-end estimate in 2020, year-end estimate 2021. Similar type of situation with respect to our expenses. 1.35 million reduction in expenses from our amended budget. But again, our revenues dropped much more quickly than our expenses did, because we have fixed expenses. Expenses such as full-time salaries and benefits, our repairs and maintenance costs for operating, utilities expenses, and what have you. So we're forecasting a $465,990 operating deficit. This, of course, I mean, we can't operate, the Parks and Recreation Fund cannot operate at a deficit. So what's going to end up happening is we'll be requesting a budget transfer of whatever our amount is. In this case, it looks like about $465,000 at the year end, in order to make sure that the fund balances. So this, of course, creates an impact on the city's general fund. But we've been talking with our finance department for several months about it, and we're working closely with them. And ultimately, that'll have to be a general fund transfer, additional general fund transfer, which is tough on the city's general fund, but it's just sort of a cost of doing business, if you will, in our pandemic years. As we begin looking at fiscal year 2022, you see we are still looking at, I mean, we're starting to plan for and budget for a rebound, if you will. We expect that our revenues will increase back, and as well as our expenses associated with that. So we're now
remind everybody that and myself, that's starting July 2021, right?
That's correct.
2020. So okay, yeah. So we're hoping that we're looking at a non-COVID sort of fiscal 2022. That's right. That's where expectations positive planning at this point is to be back to normal use. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would call it back to close to typical or normal operations by the time we get to July of this year. However, we're forecasting that attendance will rebound in some cases to about 75 or 80%. In other cases, maybe a little bit more than that. And we are not anticipating that we'll be at 100% at all, but we're starting our rebound, if you will. And so you see still at budget time, as we look towards fiscal year 22, we're still looking for our planned general fund transfer is $2,175,000. But if this $141,000 number is what we end up with, we'll need to have about a 2,350,000 roughly budget transfer. So about 140,000 more in general fund transfer than what our finance department was planning for. So as you can see, that's a pretty significant impact over a 2-year period, but we're working as best as we can to try to make that work. You see the statement of fund balance, which we've provided for fiscal year end June 30th, 2020, and then anticipated operating and surplus. Again, when we provide this to you next month, it won't show estimated fund balance because you'll see a significant, a much larger general fund transfer. So we'll show a balanced budget when we submit the budget, but this is where we're at this point in time. And those kind of conversations are going back and forth. So that's kind of the beginning of this conversation. All right, now I want to go to this next table.
Tim, before you move it, just a quick question. I mean, it sounds like the city is receptive to filling the hole with general fund. I mean, that's really the only option here.
Yes, and if you'll recall, Chuck, we've talked about this a few times, is we've been keeping the finance department thoroughly briefed on our anticipated situation with respect to that. So yes, at this point in time, the city administration is certainly prepared to recommend to city council that this is where we're at. So
Right. Thank you, Tim.
And doesn't it help that the COVID-19 bill was passed because
Yeah.
right, there's money in there for like to make up for the losses in local and state government. So that's nice.
And childcare. There's quite a bit of childcare money that I hope we're going to be petitioning for.
Oh, that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
okay, so there's a couple of things with both of those items. The recent and I don't remember the formal name. Back in the Obama years, they were called stimulus funds. I think this is American Relief Fund, I think is what that's called, that Commissioner Biber just referenced. And we believe that there's money coming to the city of East Lansing, yes. What exactly it will be used for is, even if it's not identified as being used specifically for this purpose, it'll be used for some other general fund purpose that will help offset this, offset this additional expense that's going to have to come from the general fund to balance the Parks and Recreation Fund.
You've got something.
Go ahead.
Ron, did you want to say something?
Yeah, and just kind of looking at, I was briefed on the funds and kind of talking about them a little bit. It's spread over the 3-year period, the 12 million or 12.5 million. It'd be 3 by 4. So it would definitely help us to both balance all these budgets and all the shortfalls. Obviously parking, you guys, everything's short, but it would support us over 3 years. So it'd be really helpful over the next 3 years for recovery.
does the city have somebody looking at programs? I'm thinking of the child care and kind of parsing out where there might be revenue, maybe even separate from the general financial sharing to local governments.
Yeah, we'll go after all of it. I know from our side, we're going after every penny.
And maybe some arts money. I haven't heard, but.
So with respect to that, Julianne Jennings got, I think, 80,000 in child care relief funds that were applied to fiscal year 2020. We believe that there'll be a substantial amount available in that vicinity again in fiscal year 2021. And Julianne, our before after school coordinator, is staying on top of that. Kathleen Miller just applied for, and we received $30,000 from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation for box office loss.
Nice.
And
yes, entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't remember the name of the exact fund, but that was through the Economic Development Corporation. That again was another a program where we applied for and received funds, and we're continuing to look at, even as Councilmember Bacon suggested, we'll look at turning over every rock we can possibly turn over to try to get assistance. So
well, the county is getting quite a windfall as well, and just saying, there may be programs we have going that could benefit.
There may be some opportunities there too.
Yeah.
Tim, what stands out to you in all of these budget numbers and requests? What stands out to you the most?
In terms of our programming and things of that nature?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This next table goes through the, we have, I think, 12 or 13 program areas within the Parks and Recreation Fund. And hopefully, Chuck, what I run down here now will answer your question. If it doesn't, please ask it again, but I think that perhaps this will do this. There again, we show our actual situation, what we're accustomed to doing in fiscal year 2019, what we ended up doing in fiscal year 20 as a result of the last 3.5 months closure, the 21 adopted budget, and then our year-end estimate, and then our budget request as we look towards fiscal year 22. The Park Stewardship Program looks like expenses are about the same across the areas, so that you don't see much of a difference there with respect to our Park Stewardship Program getting back to normal. You look at our soccer complex, and because we were able to operate outdoors starting last summer, you see comparisons between where we were at in fiscal year 19 and where we are looking at fiscal year 22. You get to see we're back to about typical operations there. The Aquatic Center, you get to see where now we start to see a little bit of difference. As we've talked about the last couple of months, we don't plan to open the Aquatic Center this season. We don't believe that we can operate at anywhere near full capacity once again this year. And candidly, we've got a host of facility-related, infrastructure-related items that we're going to take care of, hopefully during the calendar year of 2021, starting here in the next couple of months. You'll learn more about that, and we'll speak more to those programs when we talk about the capital projects budget, which is addressed separately. But you do see, as you look towards fiscal year 22 in the Aquatic Center under revenue, that will be the end of, that'll be the spring of 2022, which will mean 1 month of operations in the 2022 season. So you see some revenue, and you see the expense tied to 2022 there.
Can I ask Tim, how was the revenue so high for the guest services? Did we rent to voters or what was the?
So for the guest services revenue, as we looked into, you mean fiscal year 20 or?
2021.
Okay, we're forecasting that the revenue for guest services is going to come in. That's a lot of that is internal transfers. Okay, so we had our remote learning program, which was housed physically at the community center, and we do an internal.
Oh, B&A, yeah.
Okay, so that's where that revenue comes.
Okay, all right, that's right. We were doing things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you see, we start to recover, although getting to one of your questions, hopefully, Chuck, is you see the 2019 actual where we see guest services revenue typically at 528,000 and expenditures of 513. So you see where typically those kind of come close to balancing, if you will. Well, we're still not to that point. So there's a significant area where we are still in a pretty significant area of recovery. Now, the swimming pool is part of that. One of the things I want to clarify right out of the gate is revenues for the swimming pool, like the past swim holders, the revenue for that are identified under the guest services area, okay? So the swim pool revenue is typically just the Learn to Swim program and rental reservations for the swimming pool, okay? But that starts to rebound. The building, you had to maintain expenses all the way through for the building, so that's continuing to be in there. And then you have where am I now? I got ahead of myself. Oh, the Summer Solstice Jazz Festival, okay? Here's a situation where Kathleen mentioned that fundraising seems to be working out pretty well for the Children's Theater. Guess what? It seems to be working out pretty well for the Jazz Festival and the Art Festival too. But we raised funds for a 2020 festival that we didn't have. And we're raising funds for a 2021 festival that won't be held during the fiscal year, but we're planning for 2 festivals to be held in fiscal year 2022, a September 2021 festival and a June 2022 returning to our traditional date. So you see that expenses begin to really increase. It looks like they almost double. Well, in 2022, guess what? That's because we're doing 2 festivals, or we're planning for 2 festivals in 2022. Then we've got arts planning and administration, and that arts planning and administration budget is, what am I? Arts planning and administration budget, which is the expenses look like we've got more expenses going into 2021 and 22. That's because we've taken a portion of a regular part-time staff person and split that between the Arts Festival and the Arts Planning and Administration budget. So that increased expense will continue to exist. Then community events you see, and
Tim?
Yes, go ahead, Adam.
This Ron.
I'm sorry, Ron.
Yeah. No, I know there's some capital improvements that are needed for the aquatic center. When are we going to capture those, or where will they come into this? Will this be somewhere else? That'll be in, yes, that'll be in the capital projects budget presentation. Okay. Okay.
So we'll do that next month.
Got it. Thank you.
The respite agreement.
The lack of revenue would show here, right? Expectation of 0 revenue. That's...
For the aquatic center?
Yeah.
Well, yes, we've got, go back to the aquatic center if we need to. $300 for fiscal year 21 in revenue. That's because we're not opening, okay? And I asked, well, where did we get $300 for? And there's a family or 2 families that purchased. We have what's called a an all-encompassing pass, if you will, that for the community center and aquatic center. And someone evidently purchased that, or a couple of folks purchased that, but no revenue in fiscal year 21. There still are expenses. And I think Commissioner DeLay asked about that last month. And that's because we still have a portion of a full-time staff person. We still have, insurance expenses that we're responsible for. We still have basic utility costs that we're responsible. We have repairs and maintenance. And we have labor and work order charges for landscaping and things like that, that the DPW takes care of, those types of things. And some of the repairs and maintenance, you use an opportunity to take care of that. But it's still, again, not as significant as the capital outlay, which we'll be sharing more about next month. Continuing to go down the page, respite center agreement. This goes back to the Helping Hands Respite Care Program. And we provide a $10,000 contribution to the Helping Hands Respite Care Program after years of us operating our Active Living for Adults program, and we turn that over to a nonprofit, and they operate the community center, the program out of the community center on behalf of the city, plus their programs that they offered for several years before they even started operating out of our community center. Community events returns to a similar program in 2021. In 2022, excuse me, compared to 19. School-age childcare. Here's a real big significant change. As you can see, our revenue over expenditures for the childcare school-age childcare program in fiscal year 19 was traditionally what we're accustomed to seeing. And in our year-end estimate is a substantial contribution being made due to more expenses than revenue in order for us to continue to offer the remote learning program this year, and then the summer program that will start in June. But then again, we get back to a more traditional, although not back to normal, we start recovering in 2022. I think after 15 years of being accustomed to generating pretty significant amount of revenue over expense for the school-age childcare program, I hope that we maintain our patience for that to recover, because I think clearly it will rebound in the next couple of years. And I think as long as we're patient, we're going to see that getting back to where it was pre-COVID. Recreation and arts, you see beginning to return to normal. Same thing with athletics and softball, as well as children's theater. So Chuck, I don't know if that answered your questions. I tried to look at each activity area real quickly and say, this is kind of what we're seeing.
It does, Tim. Thank you. This all been very helpful.
Again, during the very same thing, just talking about program attendance, right? So following the very same format, you see 2019 is what we're accustomed to. And I think this shows you the very same information that we just talked about under the budget portion of it before talking about attendance. Soccer returning to normal, aquatic center nowhere near normal, because we'll only be open for 1 month in next fiscal year. Guest services still below normal. Rentals still below normal. The Hannah swimming pool, that attendance again is registrations for classes. It does not include lap swim and drop-in swim. Jazz festival, 2 festivals going from 8,000 attendance to 16,000 attendance. Community events returning to normal. Childcare is still behind. Recreation and arts returning to normal, but still behind. Same athletics and softball, largely because most of that program is outdoors, returning to normal, and then children's theater lagging a bit yet too. So that begins to show you our attendance. For some reason, I can't get to my next. I would
say that looks kind of conservative, and I appreciate that. Because, I mean, there is a theory that things are going to blow up. So, but I think that makes sense to assume a not fully, let alone more, next fiscal year.
Justin, I'm not able to get to my last.
I can pull it up if that works.
Yes, please.
Are we talking about the fee schedule? I don't know if I have another budget doc.
No, this isn't the fee. This is.
Oh, yes.
This is what we're proposing. Especially, we've got 5 quite new commissioners. And I believe that Chuck and Pam will remember this.
It was my idea. Don't you remember, Tim?
Yeah. We do, some deep dives into our program areas, all right? So what we're proposing is another deep dive where we have the staff come in and talk. So like Kathleen came in and talked about the children's theater tonight. She'll come in and talk about the recreation and arts programs. Julianne will come in and talk about the children's theater. So that when I start talking about, in the context of budget, recreation and arts, you see unless you're very familiar with what we're doing, you see a sort of big picture kind of thing, but you don't see all the things that we're doing. So, and Commissioner Chair right now, Pam Weil, suggested we do something like this 3-4 years ago, and we believe it's time to probably do that again. So, and perhaps you can talk a little, for a minute about that if you'd like, Pam, because I think the commissioner thought last time that it worked out really well.
Yeah, it was super helpful, really neat to get an overview of all the things that are going on, so I know what my son was doing, but I wasn't familiar with the sports and the number of people participating and all the diverse things going on. And it really gives you a chance to get to know staff, and really it ends up being just a real appreciation of how much work everybody's doing.
We also included the fee schedule. I wasn't going to go over the fee schedule in detail. I think we have like 650 different fees, but we can go over that next month. Sarah?
Yeah, I actually did have something to kind of ask about related to this, but also related to the budget. And what you brought up about the child care piece did strike me, because that is an area where, I used to bring in a lot of revenue, and obviously there's been a huge change that's impacted that program. So one thing I was wondering, and I guess this applies to B&A, but to other programs as well, potentially, is that East Lansing doesn't tend to use any type of graduated fee schedules. So where families with higher incomes might pay more for programs. And it has struck me that in B&A, that's a kind of particularly potentially relevant option. Our family lived in another city for a year that had a really similar city-run program with the public schools that we use there, as we've used B&A here, that had a graduated fee schedule. And, we paid a higher rate. And I do think, B&A is uniquely convenient for families, that your children can remain at the school building. And it's a wonder, I'm personally super appreciative that it exists. I really think it's important that it continue to exist. And I just wonder if that's ever been explored as a way to, especially if there's some concerns looking ahead about stabilizing the finances.
I think looking towards the future, right, the situation that we're in right now gives us a tremendous opportunity to start looking at that. not just the pandemic, but the whole conversation that we're putting as a significant priority as a city organization with respect to equity and inclusion. So I think the situation right now presents a tremendous opportunity to start really revisiting that.
Yes, I know there's some revenue coming for just that sort of maybe kicking us off into, I love that idea and I think it's fabulous. And maybe with some revenue coming in, we could look at restructuring, getting started in because it's been, you know, we spend all our money, we're a break-even situation. But yes, I love that idea of, yeah.
I think what my recommendation would be is that we kind of go with the budget as it exists right now, but we put that as perhaps a priority during the upcoming 6, 8, 10 months so that we're prepared next year to put something together that appears to make some real good, quite logical, rather than to try to just kind of change horses right now, if you will. So
we'll have a better understanding of what kind of monies might be available.
that's true.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I know. Okay.
I love that
Very
point.
good.
Yeah, important. All right. So in general, would you say, Tim, that we're not seeing increases? As I scan this, I'm not seeing particular fee increases. Is that pretty much what we're talking about?
that's pretty much what we're talking about. There's a couple of exceptions to that I'm still wanting to visit with staff regarding. I guess part of my sort of thought on that when providing the direction to staff this year is, this has been a tough year for everyone. And to start coming back and increasing fees during this period of time it just adds another layer of things that we have to.
More bad news.
Yeah, our community supported a income tax here recently, and our community has been very good about supporting our programs. And yes, we've got the user pay philosophy, but I think one of the things we need to look at is helping families out as much as possible during these times.
Here.
Tim, I really agree with that. I mean, it sounds like the philosophy is we want people to come back. Let's do what we can to encourage them to come back, and leaving the fees where they are will help with that encouragement.
Yeah, that's my version of it too. So
I think that's true.
Then I turn around and put pressure on staff and say, you guys got to generate more revenue. So.
Okay, director's report. Public property naming.
Oh, so yeah. Property naming. I wanted to just simply suggest to the commission that it appears as though we'll be looking at a discussion item on the city council agenda, I think at the April 20th meeting. So that is moving forward. So that's all I wanted to suggest with respect to that.
Tim?
I don't have any many other. Jane? Did you want
to? If I may, we had added item 4.5 to our business
Oh, I'm
items.
sorry. Geez, after all that, and sorry. That's on me.
I didn't want to.
Yeah, I saw you come on, and I'm like, oh shoot, Adam.
Yeah, no, I did, and then I was like, well,
no, that's good.
So I kind of wanted to quickly give an update on where we are and then what the ask we have of the commission is as it relates. And I know two of our members may not know, but I do know that Nichole was on the Pinecrest meeting that we went to, or that we did with Councilmember Bacon and Elaine Hardy on Monday. But what we're trying to do is on Bessemer Drive, across from which is at Abbott in Saginaw, roughly. On that street is the first home in the city of East Lansing that was purchased by an African-American family back in 1964 by Dr. Robert Green from MSU. And so we are working on putting up a state historical marker and working towards doing the application for that. Across the street from the house is city-owned parkland. So it makes we're going to try to put it there. It should work out if everything works out very well. So one of the things when I had spoke with Elaine and with Councilmember Bacon is just trying to get support where we can and buy-in from the community. So we had initially talked to the HRC. They said they'd be happy to do a letter. We've met with the Pinecrest Neighborhood Association. We plan on hitting the rounds a little bit more. One of the things I had talked about last month, and again, I hadn't had the opportunity to sort of really drill down and make sure we had it on the agenda for tonight, was to talk about doing a letter of support from the Parks Commission so that could be included with the application that we send to the state for the historical marker. And it wouldn't have to be, I think, anything too detailed, basically just saying that the commission is in support of putting a marker because it's public park property. So I think the commission's, weigh in is important there, just supportive of that, and really nothing beyond that in terms of getting into the weeds is, I think, sort of the idea of what we're looking at. We're just that we're aware of this, we are supportive of the broad strokes and encourage the state support as well.
Okay, so I hear that there is a motion to send a letter of support. Does someone want to move that?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of sending the letter, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that passes. And I'm assuming what will happen now is we'll get the letter, everyone will see it, we'll sign it, and the rest will be done electronically.
Yeah, how do we want to go about and do that? I can, Tim, I can maybe work with you on that and draft it, and then we can get everybody's eyes on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adam, I was going to suggest that perhaps you and I could have a conversation.
Okay, I'll email you or what have you, and we'll put a draft together or something like that. And I want to thank you, Pam, for helping me through the parliamentary procedure there.
Well, and this, voting on something that we don't have in writing in front of us is less than ideal.
Sure.
But I think the high level, and unless you slip in some details.
No, I can tell you the HRC did something very similar where they just sort of voted on doing just the broad strokes, and then one of their members is going to go ahead and do something very similar. So that kind of jives with what they're doing. So thank you so much for, like I said, clunkily guiding me through there.
Yeah, then forgetting it was on the agenda.
If I could add something, typically what we do is we'll get that to Adam, but then we'll share with the full commission what we end up completing at the next meeting.
Is it officially parkland? I know it'd be a great place for a spur to the trail, but is it city owned? Is it?
Yeah,
it's city owned, but does it show as, it doesn't show as a park, right? It's not officially a park, Tim?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh, it is. So it comes on
across the street.
Yeah.
It's basically part of that whole
trail
meadows.
Oh, okay.
Of property in there.
All right. Well, good. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely makes sense. All righty. All right. Are we ready for commissioner communications? All right. What I like to do is I poll everybody, and Sarah Hoover, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Not tonight.
All right. Sarah R.
Sure. I have one thing. It's a little bit of a idea brainstorm. So, and I guess this follows up on the comments of bringing people back and how are we thinking about like the parks in this new moment in the summer. So, the farmers market is popular. We've seen the winter market be very popular. I'm curious if there's been any thought to allowing and maybe charging a small fee for things like the Kona ice or ice cream or food trucks to park at Patriarch on weekends. There's so
Ooh,
much
I like
space
that.
there, and it, you know, we want, and we're not going to have the aquatic center, which is super sad, but like if we can enhance what we do have, I mean, people, the number of people, I was at Patriarch on a super cold, blustery 40-degree day, and there were so many people there.
Yep.
And it's like a nice, I don't know, it just seems like it'd be nice to offer more at the places that we do have available.
That's a neat idea.
You get a little money, tiny, you know, nothing like what the budget hole is, but
I love that idea.
That's,
You got a million of them, Sarah.
there's something we've got an ice cream vendor who's, I don't even know whether that person's licensed or not. I just think that person just goes out there and decided that she's a vendor. So, and that she's out there several days a week. So there's been several conversations around how we move forward with things of that nature. So with the renovation of the shelter and the restrooms, there's an opportunity there.
Yes.
Looking at those types of things. So
Yeah, that's great. And moving forward, we could talk about possible subcommittees, maybe of this body working on those sorts of enhancements. I'd be happy to work on something like that. So
okay, yeah.
and not just because I can walk over, but that helps.
Yeah. I guess part of what I'm thinking is that if it were something where, you know, there was more than one and it was
Sure.
even in a communication sort of
Mini
Patriarch
festival.
Park, you
Yeah.
know, so people really knew,
Sure.
it was something to look forward
Yeah,
to.
it'd be like a festival. It could be like a food truck festival. I've been to those. They're delicious.
Yeah, you could advertise it and yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sponsors even. But, oh, now we're going. Now we're talking. Alex, do you have something?
Can I interject, Pam?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Ron.
While we're on the subject, I think kind of to build off what Sam was saying on keeping the price structure the same, I would be receptive to, I as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I could see Parks and Recreation needing dollars, like some marketing, like back to life kind of thing.
Sure.
That could be something I would be supportive of. And I'm sure people who are supportive of that, Councilperson Greg, people like we would support. I think that's something maybe to consider. Just to let people know somehow with your branding that you're back and these services are back. Because I think that'll accelerate that uptake on, as I was looking at those numbers. Yeah, that's what that's probably what we have to do if we're going to really have a half a year. Try to accelerate the comeback.
Right.
So I'd be open to that.
And one of the things I love about it, and nothing against the downtown activities, but this has a real community feel, just like even Valley Court does. It's kind of pulling it out of being a business kind of model to being a really community park centric. I don't know.
Yeah. So if you guys come up with marketing things and it has money tied to it, I would support trying to find the money. So I think that's going to be critical.
How about we generate revenue?
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
That was it.
All right. Okay, great. I'm sorry, Alex, did you have something?
Just wanted to say welcome to our new commissioners. It's great to have a full group again. Absolutely. And by the time we're back in person, I'll only have one more in-person meeting than you have had at that point. So
Yeah.
I've been on the commission a year now, and I got that one meeting in February. So I definitely look forward to being back in person with folks, and glad to see some new faces this week or this month.
Chuck?
I just want to add my welcome to Alex's to Sarah and Nichole. And like Alex, I'm anxious to be back in person for so many things in our lives, but the commission will be one of them. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you for volunteering to help us out.
Adam, do you have anything else?
Touched on pretty much what I wanted to say earlier, but yeah, welcome to the new members. And I look forward to meeting all of you in person at some point. So.
All right. How about Dr. Nichole?
Hey, bonjour. Thanks for the welcomes, everyone. Is this where I should talk about the garden?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So in the Pinecrest neighborhood, it started out because we had the thought, being some of the other parents, wouldn't it be nice to have outdoor learning because you were at Pinecrest Elementary School. maybe not Pinecrest for long, but anyways, but it was like a little complicated with the school because with the recent construction, they're like, oh, we're on contract, we can't change anything because they've just have drainage works. So we're like, well, maybe, and then our president, Abby Taikakia, thought like, well, maybe Henry Fine. I was like, oh yeah. And so we started looking at that, and long story short, so now we've looked at a few spots. It's actually Justin I talked with, and back in September, and the thought was like, we'll come up with a proposal for actually this body and the city staff working with Garden Project of what that might look like and where. And so we've been working on that. It's nice. We did a survey, and we have like a good amount of interest. 17 families like, oh, I'd like a spot, but like people responded, they're very positive about it, and we just like it in the neighborhood. Well, the thing is, it's kind of different today than what I thought it was yesterday, because we had a fellow from the Garden Project come and look at a spot that's kind of at the end of Gilchrist, so in Henry Fine Park, because we're like, oh, we'd still like the school to kind of access it. Look at that spot. It's a pretty place. There's like a part that's higher up, but then there's a lot of flooding in those fields. The thing about that spot is it's kind of far from water. So we need water, which can be quite an expense, and we'd need fencing. No matter what, a garden there is going to end up needing fencing, because that's one of the main interests people have. It's like, oh, if we have food crops, we want it in our yard, but there's so many deer and whatnot. So when we were there today with, his name is Ben from the Garden Project, another woman who's in the Pinecrest Neighborhood Association and is a parent at Pinecrest, there's a part on school property that used to be tennis courts. Now that part is flat as can be. It's close to that drinking fountain that's turned off now at that Tiny Tot parking lot, where it's like if you guys have been over that at Crown, at the end of Crown, how there's that little parking lot in the midst of Henry Fine Park. But then there's like a line of trees that have been planted, and then there's like this flat area. We're kind of thinking now it might be worth going back, not just me approaching the school, because I have talked to the superintendent, I've talked to the board, I've talked to friends, I talked to the maintenance person, like, can we use this for garden? And haven't heard a lot. They've been very distracted, of course, with adjusting to the pandemic. But I figure, since I have this other parent now who's like, this would be such a good spot, we're going to try again for that to be the spot for the garden, but it still involved the city because it'd be like that water use. So there'd still be like a relationship needed. So I'm saying that. So we're going to give another last push to be like, can we have this as a garden? There's really no negatives to it. It's just like a matter of like getting their attention enough to say like, just commit, just say yeah. So, because we have a really strong relationship with the Garden Project. But so that'd be something with the city, is that water use. But that other spot, I would like to just sort of get on your radar also, because it would be very nice because I was talking about another Garden Project, if it were like tilled and then planted with as like a wildflower native grass sort of meadow. There's so much property that's mowed, right, in our parks, in that area itself. This would be like, it's about, kind of like when we measured out, it's about 110 feet by like maybe 45 at the widest. If that were to be like tilled and then like broadcast with seed and then like grow as just a spot, it's at the end of that little drive that could show people and maybe be a model for other parks of like, this is what this looks like. This is like an area that can be something other than the much mowed grass we see everywhere. I feel like that might be a lovely thing that would be part of parks. And I know there's like, rain gardens, this or that at Patriarch, but I mean, I'd love to see that expanded. Close to schools is ideal, but there's so many opportunities for it at different parks, and just sort of, that sort of thing. It doesn't have to cost a lot. It's like, it's tilling and it's seeds, and there's some, I live right nearby, so I'd be like, I'd be happy to like keep an eye on it or take care of it or make sure, if there's a drought, it gets a little water. But once that's established, it goes pretty well. And,
yeah,
you know,
does Wendy,
yeah.
because Wendy Lump here has reported on indigenous plantings, and they did that with Bailey, right? Wendy, you've got some familiarity with that sort of work. And
Right. Our Department of Public Works, the environmental administrator, who is the staff person for the Commission on the Environment, they have, she's got some pretty, and I'm missing the words here, but she really is committed to establishing more of these native areas, as you've discussed, Nichole. As an example, when we excavated or removed some of the material from the White Park Pond, we had to, we spread it out in an area of White Park, and we seeded that completely with native grasses and wildflowers. And so now, instead of mowing that whole area, that's going to be a natural, you know, a natural meadow. And so Kathy DeChambeau is the administrator, and the city has a whole program for pollinator friendly gardens, and she is really working at trying to establish more of these natural areas where we don't mow so much. A lot of what you're describing right there. And she has talked to me before about if there might be a place in Fine Park where we could do that. One of the things with Fine Park, I think you hit on this, people kind of are used to mowed lawns signifying maintenance and care. And so to make that transition from a mowed lawn into a natural meadow sometimes takes people a little time to make that adjustment. And so we'd want to think about that as we look at Fine Park, if we are looking at a natural area like that instead of a mowed area. But like I said, Kathy DeChambeau's got a lot of drive to do those sorts of things. And that's definitely something that Tim and I could have some conversations with her about, and we could look at what the possibilities are for that area there.
And maybe in the next couple months, bring her in and we can discuss it with the full board too.
Yeah. I've definitely talked with Kathy. Yeah, I think she's great. And the pollinator friendly, right, community or city or something is like the title with the East Lansing project. And I've definitely looked at it. I like send people over there, the same with the MSU pollinators, because it's all there, you know, like so many things that would be good for everyone. It's like people have figured this out. People already care. And it's like a lot of it's just sort of like you said, sort of that change, that kind of change in perspective. And, you know, and it's like if we can get places, I mean, who goes to Patriarch or however people pronounce it different ways, but might see that like a bunch of echinacea notes, like, oh, why is that there? You know what I mean? It's like once people see it and can see how attractive it is, it can make a big difference. You know,
one of the tricks I know to dealing with this too is to have trails around it, even if they're you know, to clearly like integrate it into a design. But we're getting, that's a topic too. More on that.
Yeah. I mean, if you ever go to Blanchette Street, you'll see my yard.
Yeah, you can see my yard.
One house at a time. Yeah, you know, so it's like even everyone on this board, if you think about like, what can I, you know, put a little patch in my yard that could be flowers instead of grass, it can really make a difference. Just and
less mowing. Tim?
Yeah, Pam, staff can get with Nichole. I suggested to Nichole that staff can get with her and further develop the conversation with respect to the community garden. And as Wendy suggested, we can further perhaps have some conversations with respect to the a wildflower meadow or something of that nature, and develop something over the course of, you know, some time here.
Yep, great. All right, so my comments is another Kathleen kudos. Kathleen, I'm part of a clay, I used to do ceramics before COVID at Hannah Center. And we put in a grant, the user group put in a grant with the Arts Commission and we got it. And Kathleen did a lot of work on that and really appreciative of that. And God darn it, I've got my first shot and I'll be back in a month or two to start throwing things again. All right. If that is all, I call we're adjourned. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Welcome. So glad to have a full board, and yay, it's spring, everybody. See you
Have a
next
good
time.
night. Take care.
Welcome aboard,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
St. Patrick's Day.
Yay!